Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a highly complex, really fascinating modern theory mapping out the exact intersection of finance, AI, and mass surveillance. The source material often calls this the digital control grid. We're going to look at how emerging tech might literally be rewiring our society from the ground up. Let's dive right in.
Now, to understand where the dialogue around this topic usually begins, our source points to this ancient quote from Revelation 13:17. For almost all of history, people just assumed this was a metaphor, right? But what's absolutely wild is how some modern observers are using this 2,000-year-old text as a symbolic framework for an impending technological shift. They aren't looking at this as theology. Instead, they see it as a very real blueprint for infrastructure that's literally being built right now.
And that brings us to the core concept, the digital control grid. The source analyzes this as a massive, sweeping transition in human history. We are supposedly moving out of the industrial age and straight into an intelligent age, an era built completely on data and intelligent insights. The theory suggests this new reality gives central planners a really unique opportunity to centralize power using this proposed interconnected system.
So to impartially map out this sprawling theory, originally put forward by former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Housing Catherine Austin Fitts, we're going to hit a few key areas. We'll start with the macro premise, then move into Pillar 1, programmable money, Pillar 2, digital identity, Pillar 3, surveillance hardware, and finally, we'll look at the catalyst for change.
All right, let's jump straight into Pillar 1, programmable money.
To really grasp how this all builds together, we have to look at how money itself is fundamentally changing. The traditional dollar sitting in your bank account right now, it's basically a neutral number. It has zero rules attached. It honestly doesn't care if you spend it on coffee or a new car. But the explainer highlights a critical shift toward the programmable dollar, stuff you might hear called a stablecoin or a central bank digital currency. This is money that actually has specific conditions baked right into the currency itself.
So, what do those conditions actually look like in the real world? Well, programmable money could theoretically be given an expiration date, or it could be geofenced, meaning it literally only works if you're standing within your home state. It could even block you from buying certain things, like specific crypto assets or maybe even meat if tied to carbon policies. The source argues that with frameworks like the 2025 Genius Act baking Know Your Customer rules right into the Treasury pipe, central planners could theoretically enforce incredibly specific spending habits on all of us.
And once you have programmable money tied to behavior, you're stepping right into the realm of a social credit system. The logic is pretty straightforward. You take an action, it gets logged, your score adjusts up or down, and your financial access is instantly dialed back or expanded. And just to prove this isn't some distant sci-fi movie, the source points straight to China's proven model. Over there, more than 30 million flights and train trips were blocked in a single year just because citizens fell out of compliance with their behavioral scoring system.
Now, this push toward digital programmable currency isn't just an American thing or a Chinese thing. It's global. You've got European Commission President Christine Lagarde framing these programmable currencies as an absolute necessity for innovation. On top of that, major asset managers like BlackRock envision a near future where literally all stocks, bonds, and assets are traded as digital tokens on one massive, programmable ledger. We're talking about a multi-hundred-trillion-dollar market, all governed by strict, programmable rules.
That leads us perfectly into Pillar 2, digital identity.
Because think about it, if your money has rules, the system needs a totally foolproof way to know exactly who is trying to spend it. Which brings us to a staggering number, 18 million. That is the number of real people who have already voluntarily scanned their irises using a shiny little device called the Orb. This was rolled out by a company co-founded by OpenAI's Sam Altman to give users a world ID, basically a digital credential verifying your totally unique biometric signature. Now, you're probably wondering, why on earth would 18 million people volunteer to do this? The source actually acknowledges the very legitimate practical appeal here. I mean, how do you prove you're an actual human being in an era flooded with deepfakes and AI bots? Apps like Tinder, DocuSign, Zoom, they genuinely need to know you are who you say you are. So the problem this solves is incredibly valid and honestly, highly convenient.
But here is the massive risk observers are throwing red flags about. Think about it. You can change a hacked password. You can cancel a stolen credit card, but you absolutely cannot get a new set of eyeballs.
Handing over irreplaceable biometric data to a private company creates immense privacy risks, especially when you consider that major global institutions like the UN and the Bank for International Settlements are explicitly designing these digital ID systems to interlock seamlessly with the programmable digital currencies we just talked about.
Which brings us to Pillar 3, surveillance hardware.
Okay, so you have the programmable money and you have the biometric identity, but you still need the physical infrastructure to monitor both of those at scale. The source asserts that the massive arms race we're seeing right now for AI data centers and incredibly dense cell tower networks, we're talking a tower every 400 to 700 feet, isn't just so we can stream videos faster. It's about spatial control. It's the ability to triangulate human locations in real time, indoors or outdoors. The theory even extends to new legal mandates for vehicle kill switches, essentially allowing a car's dashboard to act as judge and jury over where you're allowed to travel.
Now, trying to process this absolutely incomprehensible amount of behavioral and financial data requires mind-boggling computing power, and platforms like Palantir, originally built for military and intelligence agencies back in 2003, Palantir's whole job is integrating massive volumes of data. And the source highlights a pretty fascinating piece of symbolism here. The company is actually named after the ancient seeing stones from Lord of the Rings. You know, the ones that allowed the Dark Lord Sauron to not just watch, but actively manipulate what people saw across Middle-earth. Kind of makes you think, right?
So the overarching theory here is all about data fusion. The idea is that systems like Palantir are increasingly being integrated into civilian life to fuse everything together. We're talking your financial transactions, your physical movements tracked by cell towers, and your online behavior, all dumped into one central AI-processed platform. According to the source, the ultimate goal is to build a real-time, unified risk profile for every single individual.
And finally, let's look at the catalyst for change.
So why is all of this accelerating right now? And what is the catalyst required to push this massive theoretical grid into full-blown reality? Well, the source argues the catalyst lies in one single terrifying metric, 125%. The US debt to GDP ratio has crossed a totally unsustainable threshold. With foreign nations buying way less US debt lately, central bankers are staring down an impossible choice. If they raise rates to save the dollar, the bond market collapses. But if they cut rates to save the bond market, the dollar tanks. It's essentially a massive financial stress test.
The central planners' proposed solution to this massive crisis? A colossal pivot. They desperately need a new market for US debt. The theory goes that by putting programmable digital dollars, which are basically treasury bills wrapped in a smartphone app, onto hundreds of millions of devices globally, they can export that debt straight to the retail market. The source posits this props up global demand for treasuries and preserves the dollar's dominance, while simultaneously digitizing the global economy and funneling everyone right into this control grid.
But here's the catch. To get people to adopt this massive shift quickly, there needs to be a push. As the theory notes, scared people accept things they would never accept otherwise. The source argues that modern crises, whether it's disrupted supply chains driving up your grocery bills, or past global health emergencies, serve as the ultimate catalysts. These periods of intense fear and societal stress allow vast infrastructural changes, like digital health certificates and tracing apps, to completely bypass the normal, slow-moving legislative process and just be adopted instantly.
So bringing this whole thing together, we get the combined grid theory. Pillar 1 dictates exactly what your money can do. Pillar 2 verifies exactly who is spending it. And Pillar 3 tracks your location and compliance in real time. When you combine all three of these during a period of intense financial or societal panic, the source posits that central planners create a perfectly seamless enforcement mechanism, one where no new laws or physical police are even needed. A simple turn of a digital dial could restrict your access to society if you fall out of compliance.
As these highly interconnected institutions continue to build out technologies that, let's face it, are undeniably convenient and maybe even necessary for navigating a modern AI-driven world, we're left with a truly profound final thought. In this massive transition to the intelligent age, where exactly is the line between ultimate convenience and total control? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and always keep questioning the world around you.